This
Put it-
ain't on national TV. Don't fucking invite me.
Who's engineering it? Paul, who's the engineer of the, are you Rebecca?
Yes, it's me. Okay,
So
it's
make it a
live
gallery
now.
view. Is it a gallery view?
It is a gallery view.
So you have all the, all right, all right, now I can see everybody. Okay, perfect. Paul, I would move the camera.
No worries. Yeah, my camera situation is not great. My laptop is great on almost everything I need except the camera placement. There's almost nothing I can do.
You know, I have it, you know, sit on the floor and then put it up on top. That's what I do.
The camera on the
Are
bottom
you all
of my
running
screen.
again next year for the next election? Or?
We're gonna win, so.
Oh yeah.
Let's
I
not
think
talk like we're gonna
you
lose.
can win and still run.
Let's not, I mean, I know this is probably, you know, let's not act like we're gonna lose. Even if that, you know, do you get what I'm saying? Like, if people are listening, we might get some votes. We might,
I agree.
I've been warned that by a few different people.
Yeah.
Stacey Prussman will be running for re-election after she wins with 75% of the vote for mayor.
Right. After I've killed Eric Adams and Curtis Lewin.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So
The
it takes
logo
too long to
alone,
implement
our logos alone will win, so. Our marketing, the F line, I mean, we had wake the F up and then we're on the F line. How crazy is that? Let's be honest.
Oh, Eric,
Even Larry
Alexa got,
even Larry was asking me.
Alexa got 200,000 in public funds.
She spent millions under the Sherman Foundation. I put up a link on my website under corruption. You could see they gave money to every nonprofit not every, but most nonprofit organizations in my community. So it's like, yeah, read my op-ed.
Matthew, I think you joined after.
Do you have dates on when they did
join
that?
after Eric?
I just had the 2019 up to 2019. But,
All right, guys, are you ready?
Yes.
You ready, Suraj? You ready, Matthew,
Ready.
Devin?
How long
Erik?
is this going on for?
Until election day. No, probably about an hour, 30 minutes. I don't know.
No. I'd
Yeah,
say
let's do
let's see how the vibe is at by 9 o'clock, and if it's a little
Depressing.
yeah, or just like if it's not like really rolling, I say let's call it at 9.
Paul, do you mind, should I tweet that we're doing this?
I'm working on it right now.
Oh, I don't know what you're doing. I'm not in the same room. You're in
I
the other
told you
room.
I was going to do that.
Oh, I don't, I'm just asking. I don't have my Twitter to look at.
All right. Well, are we on? It looks like we're on. Are we not on?
You're live.
We're live?
Yes.
Are people
But,
watching us? Hi, guys. Welcome to election night coverage,
We
libertarian
got one.
style.
I think it's me. Yeah.
Welcome. We have all our great candidates here. I'm Stacey Prussman. I'm running for mayor on the Libertarian line. That's the F line on the ballot for Wake the F Up, or for freedom, or financially, fiscally responsible, or for go F yourself. So that being said, we're gonna have a lot of fun today. We have all the candidates, pretty much all the candidates running on the Libertarian line. We have Matthew Morgan, Devon Balkind, Suraj, Erik Frankel. We're missing John Tobacco. And I think that's it, right? Are we missing anybody else?
David Casavas.
David Savas. We're missing him, but we have
Michael.
Michael. Oh, Michael Lewyn. There he
There's
is.
Michael.
Here.
And
He
there's
made it.
Michael. So
That's
our
good.
crew is here. And we're live, everybody. So look at the camera. So we're gonna talk some libertarian city issues. We're going to talk about our campaigns. We're going to have a really great time, and you get to meet all the candidates and hear some of their platforms. It's going to be moderated by Rebecca and Paul, who's been working on the campaigns with us. Rebecca is the head of Manhattan's LP, and Paul is my campaign manager and overall and on the state committee. So you'll learn about a little about libertarianism, about our platforms, about what we stand for, our similarities, our differences, but how much we love the city and how much we want to make a difference here in New York City. So without further ado, I will leave it up to our moderators. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's have a great talk.
Love you all.
Good. Hey guys, I'm Rebecca. I'm chair of the Manhattan Libertarian Party. Okay, this is our second live stream. I think I've learned a thing or two after the one we did last year, which was a complete disaster. So this time I know what I'm doing. Okay, let's start with just some introductions, and I'm going to time everyone's introductions too. So
Like a real forum, Rebecca.
yeah, so we're just gonna go in order. So Stacey, you can go first. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us why you're running? So
Sure.
I'll give you 2 minutes, and you can start now.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Stacey Prussman. I'm running for mayor of New York City. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised here. I've lived in all the boroughs practically, and I've never moved out of New York City except for college, where I lived in Albany, which is upstate New York. And I love New York City with all my heart. I strongly believe that New Yorkers do best when they are left alone to make their own decisions, to create their own businesses, and to thrive in their own way. The government sometimes dampens that in New York, and I think we need to leave New Yorkers alone. And one of the reasons why I ran for mayor was not only the pandemic and how it closed my businesses and all the businesses I worked in, because I worked as a stand-up comic in the comedy industry. I've worked in the educational field. They closed schools. I learned that I want to make a difference in New York. I want to be the candidate that changes the way government is done in New York. I want to stop the bureaucracy, end all the unneeded laws, be tough on violent crime, fair on other crimes, and I want to make a difference. And that's why I'm running for mayor as a libertarian. And I'm very excited about running, and vote tomorrow, November 2nd, for me on the F line. And I want to wake New York the F up, because New York needs to be fun again. And New York's a place of fun. And without that, why come to New York? So thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Stacey. Okay, next, let's hear from Devin, who's running for public advocate and giving you up to 2 minutes.
Oh, thanks. Well, yeah, my name is Devon Baldwin. This is my third time running for public advocate, mostly on I guess I was a former chair of the Brooklyn Libertarian Party, now a Manhattan resident, born and raised in Manhattan, had 10 nice years in Brooklyn before returning to my native borough. I've run 3 times. Each time I try to highlight technology-enabled government transparency and participation solutions that the mainstream politicians don't want to implement because they're not interested in transparency or participatory democracy stuff. And so what does that mean? That means, for example, that it's really hard to find out what funding is going to infrastructure projects, where those projects are along in the process of getting developed, and who's getting paid for them. And then with a little bit of analysis, so I basically pretend like I'm already the public advocate, and I've been doing this for a few years, and build software and data transparency tools online, and you can see them at wegov.nyc, which is basically the type of stuff that I would be building as public advocate using government, using the funds, the almost $4 million that the public advocate gets. That's basically what I'd be doing, is making the finest transparency websites in the world. And honestly, I've already started doing that. I've already got a bunch of stuff on WeGov. One of the things that's fun to look at, or depressing, depending on your opinion, is that the city's capital budget, which is its infrastructure budget, is 120% over budget. So not only is the city predicting that its projects are going to be very expensive, which it does, but then it's these projects are 120% over budget, and they're 20,000 plus years late. And just what is
thanks,
that?
Devin. I'm cutting you off. Your 2 minutes are up. Okay, next
You're a harder moderator than the debate moderators.
Next, we're going to hear from Michael, who's running for Manhattan Borough President. I'm going to start your 2 minutes now.
Hi, and I'm Mike Lewyn, and unlike everybody else, and I was not born in New York. In fact, I think this is the 14th place I've lived in since law school. And so my campaign is really based on one issue that's actually very relevant to the borough presidency, because the borough presidency is heavily involved with land use decisions. Basically, the city has a very restrictive zoning code, which means that New York allows much less housing to be built than many other growing cities. And as a result of that, rents are too high. So my platform is essentially to take an axe to the zoning code and let people build stuff. And it's really as simple as that.
All
That was
right.
pretty. That was pretty. Can I get his the extra time?
No, we'll have more time later.
Just
Okay,
kidding. Just kidding.
let's go on to Suraj, who is running for City Council District 25.
25. Hi, my name is Suraj Jaswal. So I'm a city council candidate in Queens, New York, District 25. I'm a dad, father of 2 boys, an environmental consultant, and a community activist. I volunteer my own time, funds, and skills to help whosoever asks for my help. I grew up in North India and came to United States when Bill Clinton was president. And since then, New York City has been my home. And over the years, I got to work with city agencies because my company have contracts with cities. So I got to see how city agency operate firsthand. And slowly, I saw that this has become one party, like a communist city or like a dictator. Nobody can question, nobody can say anything. Homeowners are being fined. Occupational licensing license requirements are total out of control. So now I had no choice but to stand up and speak up to bring a different approach and a different solution to city council. And one of the ideas, I mean, that's how I started, is to reduce occupational licensing requirements. Plumbers, for example, you can study in school trade, but you need 7.5 years of experience working under somebody, barber, and so on. So I want to bring common sense approach to governing. And as they say, insanity is to do same thing over and over again. So I hope people in my district could keep an open mind, rise above party affiliation, and vote for some common sense. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Erik. Thanks, Suraj. It was almost exactly 2 minutes too. Okay,
Yay.
next is Erik Frankel. He's running for City Council District 38.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm Erik Frankel, running for City Council District 38. I didn't have any political aspirations. I just started following our politicians, and I realized everything they said was a contradiction to like the needs of our community. So I figured I wanted to, complaining about them is pointless. I said, I'm going to try to replace them. But I was really apolitical. I spent the better part of the last 20 years living in Vietnam and Burma. But actually, the corruption that I've seen in our local Democratic primary is much worse than anything I've seen overseas. China,
Wow.
Vietnam, and Burma. I mean, it's terrible. And they say once you see how the sausage is made, you don't want to eat it. But I wanted to expose really the hypocrisy of our local politicians. I mean, I knew they didn't vote in the interest of our community, but I never knew why. But now I know why, and it's just mind blowing. So hopefully we can shine a little light into the darkness of politics and make things better. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm running.
Hey, thanks, Erik. All right, now last but not least, but it's the last number. It's the biggest number for the districts. Matthew Morgan is running for City Council, District 39. I'm starting your 2 minutes.
How you doing, everyone? My name is Matthew Morgan, and that is correct. I'm running for City Council District 39 in Brooklyn, New York. I'm currently the chair of the Brooklyn Libertarian Party, and I'm running for a lot of different reasons, mostly because I think that as Well, I always say that you have to be a little narcissistic to run for any position. And I'm running because I think I can do it better than the people who are on the ballot, and I think I can do it better than the people who are currently in city government. I want to do things like Michael says, build more, take an axe to the housing code. My slogan is abolish zoning. I think we should build more housing. I think it attracts a lot more talent, because if we build more, it lowers rent, brings in talent. And we brought, the city's made a lot of jobs in the past 10 years, and we just haven't accounted for the housing to equal, which, causes high rents. And, people romanticize, that as part of the New York struggle, but that's a shitty thing to idolize and romanticize. It shouldn't be like that. As for things like, I want to reform the criminal justice system, the NYPD. I think the NYPD is way too involved in people's lives. I think they need to take a backseat and focus on things that are really affecting the community, like crime, robberies, and not so much about, just harassing people on the street for any given little thing. Also want to save small businesses. That means reforming the tax code, so making sure that businesses are getting taxed fairly at the levels for the income that they're making. And, it shouldn't be, hey, you're right next to a Target, so you get charged as much as this big box store. That's not fair to them. Then my other big thing is safe streets. The city needs to care about climate change, and that, means decreasing the amount of cars on the street. It means building more bike lanes, creating denser cities that lead to less, carbon monoxide and all that stuff. So I'm an all-around candidate. I got a lot of things that I'm passionate about and I want to do for the city. And that's it.
Thanks, Matthew. Okay, I also want to add that we have two other candidates that are running. One of them is David Casavas. He is running in City Council District 4. And if you ask him directly, why are you running? He'll say, I didn't want to run. And I can say that with confidence because that is what he wrote. That's what he said on video in his candidate statement with the Board of Elections. So he told me that the Republican Party basically just put him on the ballot as a placeholder candidate for City Council District 4 because no one in the Republican Party wanted to run for it. And once he was on it, he played 4D chess and he got on two other independent party lines, including ours. So he is truly a master at getting on the ballot. I think we should all look up to him. Should all have a great respect for him, despite the fact that he claims he does not want to run. And the other candidate is John Tobacco. You guys may have known him as the host of Wise Guys on Newsmax. That's a show that he did not have when he first started running. And yeah, he got kicked off the ballot for the Republican primary, unfortunately. So that's why he's running as a libertarian. Okay, so let's just talk about some of the pressing issues in New York today. So in the news, you guys may have seen recently that a lot of our city workers, our police, our firefighters, teachers, all sorts of people, they're all at risk of getting fired because of the vaccine mandate. Since you guys are going to be in government, what would you do about it? Do you think it's better? I mean, I think that some libertarians would say that government is, an employer, so maybe they do have a right to enforce this vaccine mandate as the employer, because they're not forcing a private business. It's just their own employees technically. So, okay, I'm just saying that as a background as to some arguments for pros or cons. I'm just asking you guys, how do you guys feel about this vaccine mandate and what would you do? Would you stop it and try to get the people who aren't eligible to work to come back, or would you just say, let's just get rid of these city workers who refuse to get the vaccine? So let's start with Stacey. Let's do it same order, I guess, to Stacey.
Well, I want to make it clear that I'm not anti-vaccine, but I'm anti-mandate. I think it's between you and your doctor. The government is not your doctor. And if your doctor recommends that you get your vaccine, that's between you and your doctor. Now, as government, we have employees. Would I want to mandate my employees? Probably not, for many different reasons. And there's many different reasons why people aren't getting vaccines from already being previously infected. They're not able to, and so on and so forth. Or, every so often the doctor might not recommend it. I believe that there are other ways to do COVID precautions, such as testing. People are already wearing masks in schools and in jobs. So, and a lot of these people that are getting fired, like our firefighters and our first responders, are people who were in the trenches before the vaccine even existed. And we're firing those people, and it's really terrible. So as a leader of the city, I would not mandate my employees to be vaccinated, but I would be responsible and have some sort of testing so to protect the people within the organizations. I think we can't afford to lose people that have been good to our city and are good to our citizens, and that's my opinion.
All right, thanks. Okay, Devin, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's within employers' rights to mandate if they want to mandate. As someone who's not running for mayor, not having to make that call, I certainly appreciate not having to make that call.
Thanks,
but
Devin.
I mean, but I think that it's I can understand why they would make that call. However, I think there was a moment in the beginning of the first of all, I think the government completely has mismanaged this thing from the get-go. In so many different ways. I mean, the most offensive of which I'd say is them telling people not to wear masks in the beginning, when anyone who had, been to Asia knew that after after these after MERS and SARS or whatever, that it was standard practice for people to wear masks on mass transit, which is no-brainer, obvious stuff. The amount of credibility that the government lost when it came to just making sensible recommendations throughout this whole process is massive. I mean, even considering how little credibility that I think both city, state, and federal, or all three of which they didn't have that much credibility to begin with. They really squandered a ton of it. And the problem is that credibility is really important, and if you force people through mandates, you make people suspicious. You lose credibility, even if they follow your orders now. You lose credibility now, and you lose credibility later. And so now they're talking about these booster shots, and already people who I knew who were very enthusiastic about getting the vaccine have no anti-vax tendencies at all. It's clear that if the mandates continue into indefinite booster shots, that people are gonna be increasingly less likely to follow any of these directives. And we don't want to live in a society where everyone feels coerced into doing all of these different things, and no one trusts public health authorities and the government. And that's where these mandates ultimately go. Yeah, the other thing I'd say about this,
I'm cutting you off. Your
Okay.
time's up. Okay, Michael, you have any thoughts about the government mandates for government employees?
Oh, me? This is one reason I'm not running for mayor. I don't have to answer these questions intelligently. I mean, having said that, I have a strong sense there's certainly plenty of departments in the city that I suspect are overstaffed. Fire is not nearly as much of a problem as it was in, say, 1923. We could probably use a few. We probably could deal with fewer firemen. That's another discussion.
Okay, thanks. Suraj, you got anything? Or,
Suraj disappeared. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I think my internet dropped for a bit. Is it my turn now?
yeah, I can see you now.
All right. I don't think anybody should force anybody else about vaccines. There are a lot of other ways that employer can make adjustment. And we are small business. We have about 20 employees, and some haven't taken the vaccine. So we debated that. So we are not going to mandate anybody, and we're going to make reasonable accommodation to accommodate our clients' request and so on. So I don't think we should mandate it, especially a vaccine which is new. And I'm vaccinated myself, but I'm a different person. But so I can understand people's hesitation. we should give them time. We should give respect. It's a very small number of people. I don't think it's gonna be an obstacle run these departments, even if some people don't take the vaccine.
All right, thanks. Okay, Erik?
Seinfeld said, "You ever feel like the government says things are bad, and then they think, then they act. How could we make it worse? They do, and I feel like it's just, yeah, it's been a long 2 years, and as far as mandates, I think it's them making it worse than what was. It's just crazy. I mean, they say follow the science, but now it's like they don't even know where it came from. It just seems like at first they said don't wear a mask, then they say wear a mask. I mean, if you think about it, if the whole world takes the vaccine at once, I mean, what's the worst thing that could go wrong? Which is terrifying. I'm not saying that vaccines are bad, but I meant there's no long-term real observation because it's new. So I think it's courageous for people not to get it. Instead of saying that, you know, they're afraid or they're being selfish, I think it's courageous not to get it, which is very different from probably the narrative that you hear on CNN. It's easy to cave into peer pressure. Like I said, I can't go back to Vietnam if I don't get vaccinated. I can't get on an airplane. So you know, you can't travel. So basically, my son can't see his mom. So it's kind of like, do you cave or do you take it? Although I'm not saying that I'm enjoying the time away. You know, they're saying if a man's on an island all by himself, is he still wrong? But I mean, it's been like a long 2 years. But I don't know. We'll see.
All right, thanks. Okay, I'm going to start the timer again. Matthew, it's your turn.
So I'll kind of just go based off of kind of what Devin was saying about the whole, like, people are really starting to push back, and they keep, how far are these mandates going to go? How much are we going to coerce more and more people? And people are just starting to get suspicious and they're starting to get tired of it. Again, like most people, you know, I took the vaccine. I think the vaccines work. I'm pro-vaccine, but in terms of mandates, you know, if something's that good, you know, how much force, you know, should it really take? And, you know, yeah, the government really has been fumbling, you know, their responsibilities and, you know, just informing the public properly. And, you know, when something turns out that it was wrong, instead of coming out and just saying, you know, hey, we're wrong about this, they just kind of say, shut up, you know, we didn't say that, here's the next thing. And they've lost a lot of credibility, and that credibility right now, especially with the vaccine, you know, is super important to let people know, like, hey, you know, here's the situation, you know, here's why, you know, we think you should take it. And if it wasn't for all the errors that they made in the beginning, you know, all the lies, all the, you know, everything like that, you know, it'd be much easier to convince people, hey, okay, yeah, I think I should get vaccinated. So, you know, in terms of the front-facing employees like the NYPD and you know, the people in the hospitals and stuff, yeah, it makes sense for them to be vaccinated. But again, that's, you know, that's their personal choice. So I don't think the government should interfere, even though technically, yeah, they are their employers. So, yep, that's my statement.
All right, thanks. All right, just under 2 minutes. Okay, great. I got another pandemic-related question. So our city has changed a lot since the pandemic started. We have these outdoor dining sheds. We've got, you know, closed, well, I call them closed streets because that's what they are, but the city calls them open streets. So now that the pandemic's almost over, people are saying, okay, let's go back to the way things were. And other people are saying, no, let's keep these things permanently. So what's your thoughts, Stacey? Do you think we should keep some of these changes that have been made to the city since the pandemic, or should we just get rid of them now that it's all over?
Well, that's a very good question, because like individual businesses might be really thriving from outdoor dining, shed thing, I think certain places might want to keep it. And I think we should let some, I think that it should be allowed if they want to keep it. It adds more tables in a hard place, in a hard situation where they may not have had tables, and without having to pay the rent, it gives them a leg up, so to speak. So, I think that if it's not endangering the public in any which way, I don't see why we can't keep it. If a business would like to keep it, some businesses may not want to keep it. I think it's up to the individual business. And as long as it's not really affecting the safety of our citizens, I think we should be able to have that. The little shed boxes. I think they're, in the winter, we'll see what happens, but I think it added some character that we didn't have before. And some people don't feel safe eating inside yet, even though the pandemic might be over. It's not over, but I think we're changed. We're not going backwards, we're going forward. So we need to see what we do next. And that's my opinion.
Thanks. Okay, Devin, go.
Yeah, I'm pretty thrilled with the food sheds. I'm very happy that we've begun to reclaim street space from private automobiles that aren't paying any money to the city or the taxpayers. As someone who had the opportunity and privilege to park a station wagon in Brooklyn for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, I was basically getting like $300 or a month of free parking during that time, which was nice to receive, but certainly not fair to all of the people who don't get to receive that benefit. And so I think in general, there's a movement, basically a lot of cities around the world to do things well, charge for street parking so that the few people with cars don't get significant subsidies from the public. And also, so they price their parking. And also that opens up a whole world of opportunities for like, well, what could we use this sidewalk for that generates more value than just a private car that sits there. And so I think tables and chairs is great. I think that's just the beginning of the world of amazing opportunities. Other amazing opportunities include like containerized trash so that we don't have massive amounts of rats all over. And this is something that's happening in cities all around the world where they are putting trash into containers where rats can't get into. You can have little parklets. You can have little areas for dogs and cats, or for dogs to play in. I don't know about cats playing. I'm not a cat person. I don't really know about that type of thing. But I'm happy to see some new and interesting uses to the streets. I hope we keep it up. I'm for pedestrianization, and I'm for pricing parking.
Okay, thanks, Devin. Michael?
I agree with Stacey and Devin. They took the words out of my mouth. I mean, basically, if I think about, well, on the one hand, the convenience of automobiles and of a few NIMBYs, and on the other hand, more restaurants, I just want to quote the words of my master and teacher, Calvin Coolidge: the business of America is business. I'm not sure he actually said that, but if he didn't, he should have.
All right, thanks. Okay, Suraj.
Rebecca, I lost for a second. What's the question?
Oh yeah, I was asking, how do you feel about some of the changes that the city has made to the streets since the beginning of the pandemic, like having the the open streets or having outdoor dining sheds?
Well, I mean, in my district, a few blocks from me, on 34th Avenue, they turned both lanes from 69 to 93rd Street. So like 1 and 2 miles, double that, 2.4 miles, if you consider both lanes. In the beginning, I mean, just like you, I was not personally affected. Seems like a good idea. But when I start going there and co-op building, meeting residents there, elderly, disabled, people who have to go to work every day, and blocking these streets every day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. because powerful city council member is supporting it, is not something I support. In my district, it has become a big problem. Jackson Heights has been divided. Nobody's listening to elderly, disabled, or people negatively affected. Nobody wants to find a middle ground. Okay, you want your open street, maybe we leave one lane for open street, one lane for traffic or something like that. It's a new idea. And so there is no willingness, and a city council member, Department of Transportation acting like dictator. You can't question them. Your problem is not their problem. So it's just few people have hijacked this thing in my district, and it has hurt lot of local residents. So I'm against open street at 34th Avenue in my district. Other people in your block, if you want it and you guys agree, I have no problem with that. It's just local residents have to be considered.
All right, thanks, Suraj. Okay, Erik, it's your turn.
I know you said that you think the pandemic's almost over. I hope you're right. I just feel like it's never going to end. But in my district, parking is a huge issue. You know, most of us, we have cars to get to work, or pick up our families. It's not to drive to our second home in the Hamptons. You know, I feel like I work just to pay parking tickets. So I'm not, I don't know. And also, we do give a lot of money. If you have a car, the taxes from tolls, the taxes from gas, I mean, they give a lot of money to the city. So just, I think that they should lower the cost of parking significantly, like 25 cents an hour. And also, yeah, so we need more parking, not less parking, at least in my district. Probably most places.
Yeah,
I drive around looking for parking all the time. It's terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, if for parents with children too, if they want to load up the stroller, the kids, the supply, and the problem in open street in my district is supposedly bikes, e-bikes, they're zooming past everybody, so it's creating false sense of security. You will be walking there, and some e-bike may hurt you. Now they want to convert the open street into a park. So can't the city find a real place to build a park? Do you have to destroy the roads?
I agree. I say
Erik,
fix public transportation first before you take up all the parking.
Well, I think
Talk about
can I say,
putting
I
the
think
cart
what I'm
before the
hearing,
horse.
can I say
What's
one
that?
thing as someone who's running for mayor, that every neighborhood has different needs.
So Stacey, I gotta let Matthew go.
I just wanted to say
All right,
that.
Matthew, I'm giving you your 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I think a lot of great points are made. I'll just talk about the one that Devin mentioned first, that I'm also a big fan of us kind of rethinking and reclaiming technically public space that we have been just loaning out to private car users, you know, for the betterment of 60 years. There's a lot of things like, you know, putting trash there, putting tables and chairs and stuff like that. And I just think us rethinking using that space. I saw somebody with a shirt that said free parking is socialism. I was like, hell yeah, that's totally true if you think about it. But in terms of the open streets thing, the only problem that I really have is kind of one that Suraj talked about, which is accessibility. Because people with accessibility needs do need to, they do have different requirements in terms of getting around. Again, I feel like that's a very easy accommodation that the city can make in terms of, you know, allowing certain cars, you know, access. You know, I think 1-2 cars coming, you know, every 30 minutes at a slow speed on an open street, you know, isn't going to be the end of the world. It's just the constant congestion. But 1 or 2 cars coming to pick up somebody, you know, with a handicap or a disability or something, you know, isn't going to be the end of the world. Or, you know, if we allow little entrance in little spots where you know, people can drop off their inventory at the end. You know, they tried doing that in Park Slope. You know, I think there's a lot of room for compromise, but it's just that it's just become so polarized that, you know, just like everything else, that it's either this or it's nothing at all. And I think that's an absolutely terrible way to handle any issue. But that seems to be, everybody thinks that if they give an inch, that they lost, that they're a loser, that, you know, but instead people just like compromising isn't losing. if you're getting something, if you're compromising, you're getting something back. That's just the way living in a society works. So
All right, thanks,
I'm a big open
Matthew.
street guy, but a lot of nuance.
All right. How about another? I got another question for you guys. Okay, so we're all running in the libertarian line, and I would say that most libertarians, they're pretty pro housing, but what, like, are there limits to this? What if someone wants to build one of those like Dubai style skyscrapers next to your apartment? Like, or what if your neighbor complains that this building is going to cast a shadow 3 days of the year on your backyard? I mean, what are the limits to building more housing in the city? So Stacey, you can go first.
I think it's a case by case basis, and what community can the community handle? A Dubai type building, is it viable? Is it, environmentally safe for the community? I personally think, just like the open streets and the restaurants, I think every community has different needs, and every community has different housing needs and what could handle. We were up in the Bronx, and there was a building issue there because the community couldn't handle such a building that they wanted to build. So I think we need to take, each neighborhood is so unique. Like in Suraj's neighborhood, it's creating havoc. They have two, you have to, when you build, you have to build sensibly and with lots of different people's needs at mind in the community. And I think that's something as mayor and as a person that wants to lead the city, you want to make sure that I'm not a NIMBY, but I don't want to create a situation where we create havoc in a neighborhood that doesn't need it. So yes, we should build, but we need to build in a way that's going to be good for the community that we're building for, or that they're building for. If that answers your question.
All right, thanks. All right, Devin, go.
A lot of the, this issue as well as the open streets issue, I think both show that New Yorkers were kind of like a fish, a frog in like a boiling water, like slowly boiling water, which is that like we have a very dysfunctional capital planning process, right? I started by talking about how we're 120% over budget on our projects, which makes mass transit really expensive to build, which means that it's really hard for practical mass transit to reach areas that it doesn't currently reach. And those neighborhoods and those areas, rely on parking more than the interior, like Manhattan, where I live. And so, we're kind of negotiating over when it comes to open streets, like less property, less space. When in fact, what we need to do is we need to reform how we're implementing infrastructure projects so that we so that it's easier for people to get rid of their cars and deal with the streets. And it's the same thing with, in a lot of ways, it's the same thing with building, which is that, our Department of Buildings, the way that building is regulated means that only very expensive buildings are financially practical to build. And that's a problem that we need to resolve, because that's why, you get these absolute super talls in like these super, basically they're building very expensive housing around the city and not building as much inexpensive housing or accessible housing or affordable housing around, because it's just not financially lucrative enough when you deal with all the costs. And so, yeah, I want to see a lot more housing built. I think that we need 500,000 units in the city to basically make rent affordable in general, and that's going to involve building a lot of buildings. But it's also going to involve, more than anything, it's going to involve reducing the cost of building buildings so that the economics of these building projects change, and we can get the type of housing built, particularly around transit stations, around existing subways, that is affordable and like is mid-market, is affordable, and houses all of these people. So yeah, I'm pro building. We're all going to have to sacrifice some views, Devin, and some construction to get
Michael
there.
Is next.
Well, I had like an eloquent statement prepared, but the problem is Devin just said everything I wanted to say.
Sorry. It's a good thing Rebecca keeps cutting me off, because then you'd have nothing. I'm sure you've got a lot to say. You've got a lot as an actual expert on the matter. I've listened to a lot of what you've had to say about it.
I think I'm interested. We had a conversation, of course, a debate with Mark Lewyn, the Democratic candidate. And I think his inclination was, yeah, we should have some new building, but we should have balanced against this and that and the other thing. And the problem is, of course, when what really happens is, you have some sort of zoning meeting, and the people who are against the building, the people who care the most enough to go with the meeting, are usually the people who don't want anything built. So as a result, what essentially happens is the only places where buildings get built are, number one, places where developers are rich enough to win a years-long war of attrition. So for example, the super talls near me, which I don't really mind, other than I can't afford to live in them. And I wish I could. Although actually I'm pretty fine with my building. My wife is saying in the background, I like our building perfectly fine. So
For people who are New Yorkers watching, perfectly fine is about the highest compliment New Yorkers give, I think.
I think that's exactly right. Yeah. At any rate, I guess what I was saying is if we kind of do everything on a balancing test case by case basis, which I think was the Democratic candidate's attitude, what happens is not much gets built in neighborhoods with lots of very active, influential people, except again, the very expensive buildings, because those are built by developers who can spend 5 or 10 years fighting.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Michael. So Suraj had to leave. So let's go to Erik. Erik, you turned off your camera, so I don't know if you're
Yes. Yeah, I think, they say the only thing that stops good pitching is good hitting. And the only thing that stops homelessness is home ownership. We need more home ownership. We need to build more homes. Without home ownership, equity is just a word that the left loves to throw around. But if you don't own your home, it's, most people are just 2 paychecks away from being homeless. I think we need to build homes for people. The New York Economic Development Corporation owns that. I don't know the value of their land. I know it's in the trillions. They don't pay property tax. Instead of building Amazon fulfillment centers in our district or last mile warehouses, I think we should build homes, co-ops and condos. We need more co-ops, we need more condos. And if you don't own your home, you don't really feel part of the neighborhood. In Sunset Park, we have people, I'm not saying that they intentionally elect the worst candidates, but they're voting for cheap rent. So the result is we have terrible candidates, but they're like, hey, at least we'll turn this. Now, Brooklyn, I say something's wrong with Brooklyn if Staten Island and New Jersey are looking good right now. If you live in Staten Island, there's no offense, but we need homeowners. And how do you have homeowners if they won't build more homes? So owner occupied, not by BlackRock or not more shelters. We need to build homes. And that's how you stop homelessness. That's how you create equity. That's how you create neighborhoods. So maintain neighborhoods. So
Right.
It just seems like a no-brainer. Anyone who's we're all for building homes for people. The problem is the zoning commission, doesn't work for the people. Neither do the politicians. They don't work for the people. So that's why they're moving to Texas. It's crazy. I remember there was a time in Brooklyn where like the most dangerous thing wasn't parking, rent, looting, and getting run over by e-scooters. It used to be really dangerous. Now like they're putting the shelters in. And I'm not dissing the homeless. I'm just saying that it's just a problem it's a solution that doesn't really address the problem. The problem is people don't own their homes.
All right,
So,
thanks, Erik. I'm cutting you
and
off.
nonprofit organizations shouldn't own homes either. They should
All
pay
right.
property tax like the rest of us.
All right, Matthew supports abolishing zoning, but it's so extreme that he would allow his neighbor to build a home that would cast a shadow on his backyard for 3% of the year.
Well,
Okay.
I'm very lucky. I probably have one of the best views from my roof, even though I'm technically not allowed to be up there. I still go up there and I get the view of the new beautiful buildings in downtown Manhattan. I can see, the World Trade Center. I can see the Empire State Building. So I'm very lucky. And if they tried to build something across the street, I'd be upset. I wouldn't fight it, but I'd be like, oh, dang it. I mean, I don't really spend enough money here to to justify me being upset. I still pay very good rent and for the area. But the way I describe the way New York City does housing is basically like if you were in a hot sun and you had a magnifying glass and you just point it at certain neighborhoods on the map and it just causes them to light on fire. That's the way they do it. They just pick a neighborhood, they light it on fire. All of a sudden people are just rushing in and building up these huge, massive places. If we abolish zoning, we could build reasonably sized houses, 7-8 stories across the city in different neighborhoods. We wouldn't need these 30, 40-foot story buildings in every single neighborhood because they only allow little portions of the map to be built on. And we need housing so desperately that we have to build these 500-story buildings because we need the housing. But if they just allowed it across the city, you'd have reasonably sized houses. You'd have the 5, 6, 7, 8-story houses, which really aren't that massive in terms of New York City. But the thing is, they do these rezonings. The Gowanus rezoning, which just got passed, was a 5-year battle, and we don't have the time. So if we abolish zoning and just let the housing be built in the areas that is needed, we won't have the demand for these massive buildings. So we need to build more housing, and we can't keep lighting these neighborhoods on fire, because then that causes, skyrocketing rents in that area. And, it does push some people out, and that's not good.
All right, thanks, Matthew. All right, I don't know, we've been on the stream for pretty long, but maybe just one more question. Okay, so as you guys probably know, the duopoly candidates are Erik Adams and Curtis Lewa, and most of the media has said this is proof that crime is the biggest issue of New Yorkers, because they've got the leader of the Guardian Angels and a guy who everyone says is a former cop, even though he's pretty much a career politician at this point. So what would I think there's some controversy within the libertarian movement about what's the libertarian approach to crime. Some people say, like, look, our rules are too lax. I've known a lot of libertarians who really oppose the policies of some of these like progressive DAs, which I think that we might elect some in this next election, because none of us are running for district attorney. But in other cities, it's been pointed out that having really progressive district attorneys, they say that increases crime. So what do you think? What do you think about the crime issue in the city? Other people pointed out the pandemic has made the murder rate soar. What would you do? What do you think is a libertarian approach to crime in the city, knowing that it's like the biggest issue to New Yorkers? Stacey first.
I mean, crime is something that we've always had to deal with in the city. It's been up and down since I've been growing up. And I don't believe, and I said this yesterday, we should live in fear of crime. We need to, first of all, police is a reaction to crime. So my feeling is that we need to nip it in the butt. We want to deal with the mental health issues. We want to deal with drug addiction, not treat drug addicts like criminals, dealing with people as human beings first and foremost. Happy people don't commit crimes, first of all. People that are struggling, people that have their jobs taken away, those are the people that are home all day, those are the people that get involved in things. They end up becoming addicts. If they weren't already, they end up becoming involved in drugs, and they become involved in criminal activity, or they snap with mental illness. So we need to deal with the mental illness. We need to deal with people that are unemployed. We need to be active in our communities, building neighborhoods. Like home ownership creates neighborhoods and feeling like you belong. And I think when we get a hold of that, I think crime will diminish naturally without being over policed. Tough on violent crimes, fair on other crimes, less laws that don't that aren't really criminal. I think we need to really look how we do our crime in the city and not live in fear. A lot of the other candidates are running on the fear-based model, and I am not going to do that. New York is a wonderful place. We might have crime, but we can control crime by helping the people that are committing crimes before they commit the crimes. And that's the real juxt of it. The core of criminal activity is coming from mental health issues, lack of a place to go every day, feeling isolated, having an addiction issue, treating addictions as diseases. And once we get a hold of those things, I believe that we will, and homelessness, housing instability, like we've been talking about.
Stacey, I'm cutting you off.
Okay.
Devin, what's your opinion? What's the libertarian approach to crime in this city?
Well, I mean, you could have a lot less crime if you decriminalized crimes, quote unquote crimes that have no victim. So, you know, I think that a lot of the progressive, it's trendy within the Democratic Party or within, you know, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party now to really, you know, have, I don't know, critiques of police. It's less trendy to just be unapologetically for decriminalizing drugs, even, you know, which is a classic libertarian position, and which is the position of many public health officials in Europe that have done it, like in Portugal and in Northern Europe, where they have decriminalized drugs and then seen drug rates go, like use of opioids go down, use of hard drugs go down, use of soft drugs go down. They don't have their cultures there, you know, are not so like, it's not so, drugs aren't like particularly cool. And if you're Dutch and live in Amsterdam, because like you can go and buy a joint on the street and it's just like not a big deal. Here, there's all this, you know, particularly in generations past, all this mystique around drugs. Plus, when you make drugs illegal, just like when you make, you know, you also like want to decriminalize sex work. When you make drugs and sex illegal, then you're incentivizing entrepreneurs who don't really care about, you know, who are really willing to risk criminal charges, willing to risk going to jail. You have entrepreneurs who become powerful small business people who are trying to encourage people to like buy drugs, engage in sex work, buy sex because like that's how they make money. So we're incentivizing a huge black market. We're incentivizing gang formation, all this stuff by making sex and drugs illegal. Sex and drugs need to be decriminalized. I really look forward to progressives speaking clearly about that in the future. And I challenge them to do it. Like, let's decriminalize society. Let's
all right,
make
thanks,
non-victimless crimes not crimes.
Devin, all right, Michael, I know that Michael likes Curtis somewhat, so let's hear what you have to say.
I'm not going to like pretend to be an expert on criminal justice, which is another advantage of running for pro-president. I can say that I have absolutely no authority in this field, even if I was elected, and I can dodge those kind of questions. But having said that, I would say that progressive prosecutors sometimes go a little too far on one point, which is there's something to be said for not prosecuting victimless crimes. But I think some of these prosecutors seem to be not even prosecuting theft. And that's where I draw the line. I mean, it seems to me theft, even if it's not violent, is not a victimless crime. And you shouldn't be able to steal stuff. Stealing is bad, even when not politicians do it.
All right, thanks. All right, Erik.
Yeah. I think the greatest crimes in New York go unreported, and most of it is done by our politicians. I think it's a crime when they gave the 75 acres of land to a Norwegian company so that they can, in the name of social justice and green energy. I think they really rob people of the chance of equity. I think it's a crime when the nonprofits build affordable housing in our community and they don't pay property tax, and then they get the land for free. The city builds it, and then they steal the money and use the rent roll to make their constituents wealthy. And then they also endorse the candidates. I think it's a crime. I think lobbyists should be considered a crime. I mean, what they did to our community is terrible. We talk about drugs, and I just read an article in the Brooklyn paper. They said, oh, parking crimes are up, we have to stop this illegal parking. It's like, there's so much corruption going on in our city, and we're talking about smoking joints and parking tickets. but I meant the real criminals are in control. I feel like the inmates have taken over the asylum, and I think it's great that we're all running, even though I'm not saying statistically the odds are against us, but we see it. And now the goal is to just get other people to wake up and see and expose the hypocrisy. I wrote an op-ed about how my opponent the foundation that she works for bought all of her endorsements. So from that, I mean, it just creates, you have these wealthy foundations give money to nonprofits elect the politicians. Then the politicians will pass legislation to reward these very wealthy foundations and then kick money back to the community activists or the nonprofits. And if you're not in that triangle, you're going to be working and paying taxes for the rest of your life.
Okay.
So hopefully we can make it even, and then people won't have to steal so much.
Okay, Matthew, I'm starting your 2 minutes.
So the catchy phrase is, defund the police or abolish the police, which is said by, a lot of people on the left groups, but that just scares people. And I think the much better slogan is to, instead of abolishing the police, kind of like what Devin and everyone else was saying before, is to abolish bad laws. And I think that will slowly lead to not the complete abolition of the police, but to the reduction in the need for them. And then, they can focus on the serious crimes that are plaguing our community, like theft, murder, rape, stuff like this that actually scares people. And I think politicians 100% need to stop playing this up. It's a really cheap, disgusting tactic to get yourself elected, but in politics, that's politics, baby. And they're, if that's the card they got to play, they're going to play it. But I think people really need to start calling out the bullshit when they see it and saying, hey, look, things aren't that bad. You need to stop scaring people. I think the app Citizen is absolutely terrible. It does nothing. It is like, an injection into your veins of fear mongering with the constant notifications, coming to your phone. You're scared when half the time it's unsubstantiated stuff, or it's a gas leak, but it's just the constant ding and you see Citizen, you think, oh my God, something's bad happening. And that's just the police. In terms of, the actual criminal justice system, in terms of keeping people in prison for things that they haven't been convicted of for, months and years, that needs, and, cash bail and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be fixed. And I think, libertarians are the people who are the most reasonable, who aren't, the boot-licking authoritarians, who aren't the, there's no such thing as crimes, abolish the police. I think our voices are the most important, are the ones that need to be heard because they're the most rational, because we want a free society. We, agree that people should be punished for, damaging other people's properties, for hurting people, but we're also, not going to throw people in prison just because we think something is morally wrong, like drugs, like sex and stuff like that.
All right, thanks, Matthew. All right, Paul, did you have any questions you wanted to ask?
Hey, yes, I did have one. So I'd like to go down the candidates that are still here, and I'd like to ask, what is one stance from the normal libertarian, list of official approved party stances that you either dissent from a little bit or you have a different take on than normally you hear from the Libertarian Party?
All right, Stacey, you're first, and starting your 2 minutes.
That's a good question, Paul. Well, my animal rights stance, I would say, might be, I know we don't have a huge animal rights caucus in our party, but I believe animals aren't property and they're sentient beings that deserve life and happiness like the rest of us. So that's one of my libertarian points of view that may not be particularly libertarian. Yes.
Great. Devin, you're next.
Yeah, the negotiation of what is and isn't libertarian is something that I tend to resist insofar as I think it's an open debate. you know, I tend towards, again, one of the things I believe in is what I call big city libertarianism, which is basically that, that like the job of libertarians should, in my opinion, agree on limiting the size and scope of the federal government. That's obvious. But you know, once you're a U.S. citizen, once you're a resident of the U.S. and you can legally move between boundaries, like I'm all for having like a wide variety of different configurations within that when it comes to like how involved the government is in people's everyday lives. You know, I'm really inspired by the Free State Project in New Hampshire, because it's a bunch of people who put their money where their mouth is and put their time where their mouth is and voted with their feet and said, we're going to go to New Hampshire, and we're going to organize the freest state in the union. I think that's really cool. I'm also happy that people in Vermont, you know, if people want to move to Vermont, which is, you know, Bernie Sanders state, you know, big government state, I think that's cool too. Let them do it, you know, and I think that if, you know, I would love to see, you know, I'm interested in seeing how Houston develops without zoning, because I think it's an interesting concept. You know, I'm, you know, and I'm happy that, you know, I want to see a diversity of different approaches emerging in cities and states and counties around the country, and so that people can basically vote with their feet, move to the place where the government has a relationship with them that they find to be appropriate. And I think that is happening. I think that's one of the reasons why so many people are moving to Texas and Florida and states with smaller government. But I also think it's also why people, you know, move to places like, you know, why the opposite happens too, and people go to these liberal bastions. Now, I would love to see a small government liberal bastion, but I'm also interested in seeing New York City becoming a super high performance organization that's like good at stuff, because I think government following the Constitution and being efficient delivers a more libertarian outcome than just dysfunctional government.
Right, thanks, Devin. Okay, Michael, you're next.
Well, I would say, I think when this kind of the broad issue of high principle, I mean, I think we can talk about kind of these extremes of, well, on the one hand, something that doesn't hurt other people obviously should be legal. And on the other hand, something that's an obvious direct physical attack or even theft should be illegal, right? And so the hard question is, what about things that don't automatically harm other people, but create a risk of harm to other people? And so like one example is drunk driving. So obviously most drunk drivers don't kill anybody, but obviously if you're driving drunk, you're a lot more likely to kill them, or at least to harm other people. So that's like probably one area that I would imagine is maybe less controversial. And so that kind of kicks into the whole thinking about the vaccine mandate thing. I think it's probably a little less black and white than probably, you know, a more orthodox libertarian or even many Republicans, in the sense that, especially if you're in like a healthcare position, you really are and you're not vaccinated, you're at least creating a higher risk of perhaps in harming other people. On the other hand, that's why the reason I say it's not black and white at the other end, that's how it's obviously a very different rule than somebody who spends all their life in front of a computer, who maybe shouldn't be subject to the same level of rules.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Okay, Erik. Erik, I actually muted you. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have a crying baby. Okay, so I'm not a politician, but the question was, how do I disagree? What do I disagree with the Libertarian Party?
Yes.
I don't. I'm the perfect Libertarian candidate. I love the party, great party. Ain't no party like Libertarian Party. I used to joke, I say I'm a conservative at day, a Libertarian at night, but I think it's a wonderful party. And I'm really, I feel honored and privileged. I don't know that you guys let me join the party. Thank you. I think it's amazing. And I wish there were more people, more like-minded people like you guys, because I've been talking to a lot of people out there and they're crazy. They're really, I've had a lot of crazy people out there. And it's, I don't know if it's always been like this, but I get to know the world through my store. And now, you know, I go out and I talk to people and they're scared and the fact that they're looking for help from the Democratic Party is kind of disturbing, you know? So it's just like, we know that they haven't been doing a good job, so why do we want to give them more power? And so people ask, do I like the Democrats or Republicans? And it seems like it's a two-party system, and hopefully we can make way for a third party. So thank you. Say good night.
Good night.
We almost got through without him waking up.
All right, thanks, Erik. Okay, Matthew, you're next.
Yeah, I'll kind of just go kind of a little what Devin said in terms of you know, turning New York City into a very efficient local government. I guess, you know, one of the fun meme jokes, whatever you want to call it, about the Libertarian Party is my roads, and, you know, privatizing roads and stuff. And, you know, I think a local government, I'm a big fan of, said, you know, open streets, bike lanes and stuff like that. And I think there is something to be said about the local government having some type of, you know, control over, you know, how the streets are made up and what kind of, you know, what we do with the streets and how we use this public space. Hey, could a private company maybe manage the roads better and pave them better and, you know, get the snow off them better than the city government? I'm open to that. Maybe we sub those contracts out. But in terms of the actual designs of the streets, you know, I guess I would prefer that to be in the government's hands. If our boy in the Bronx is watching this, Sonny Chulo, I know he hates me and Devin for being biker bros. But he's a good guy. But, you know, I think, you know, the streets can't be totally free market. You know, I think, you know, they should be, you know, somewhat regulated in terms of what we put on them. So I guess that would be my dissenting libertarian position.
All right, thanks.
Non-libertarian position.
Hey, Paul, do you have anything else, or let's end it?
I think we should wrap it up.
All right.
Yeah, it's been
All right.
an hour,
Okay.
so-
Everybody gets a 1-minute closing statement. So Stacey, go.
Well, this has been really fun to hear everyone's opinions about all these different issues. And I think what we agree on is that there's no one size fits all answer for everything. Each community has different needs. There's a happy medium. There's compromise to make a great government, a great city. We don't need to rely on the government for everything. There's pieces of the government we can take. There's pieces we can leave. I'm very excited to wake New York the F up on the F line tomorrow, November 2nd. Vote for us, vote for the F line, vote for freedom, financial stability, fiscally responsible, the F train not taking forever, all these great things that we need in New York right now, and housing, stability, just so many issues we need to deal with. We're coming out of a pandemic and unprecedented times, and now it's time for a new way of running New York, and vote for libertarians, because we will create an amazing New York moving forward. So thank you so much, and see you November 2nd on the F line.
Devin.
Yeah, I'd like to say, you know, how honored I've been to be able to run, you know, these 3 times and have the Libertarian Party, you know, select me as the public advocate candidate. And also how I'm really impressed with and proud of my fellow Libertarian candidates. I mean, the 3 times I've run, this is definitely the most and best cohort of candidates that I think that we've had, and also just how honest people are and can be. I think one of the things that brought me to the party was that you know, libertarians can be unrehearsed, not when I say politically correct, I mean like within the party, like you don't have to be performative. You don't have to like figure out like what the right answer is, because that's what people want to hear, that people are actually like really thinking about the issues for themselves, coming to like similar conclusions, you know, themselves, and then can speak honestly about how they came to that conclusion and why they feel that way. And it's not just rote stump speech. It's not just stuff that they learned and recited from other people, but it's intellectually honest, and it's a genuine civic political experience. It's not fake. And so I'm proud of all the candidates. I'm really happy to see where the party's gone. I'm excited for its future. And I look forward to voting for everybody on tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Devin. All right, Michael.
Well, I would say look forward to voting for everybody, but the truth is I already did, so it's a little too late for that. So even if I change my mind, it's already too late. I'd also say that Bella appreciates Stacey's emphasis on animal rights,
Bella.
although
Hello,
think-
Bella. We
Hi.
got you. You're so
Hello.
pretty.
Although she's already in control, so I'm not sure if she really needs any more rights. I feel like maybe we need more rights in this apartment. And in conclusion, I will just repeat my campaign message. The rent is too damn high.
Yes, it is.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Michael. Okay, it looks like Erik is gone, so Matthew, you're next.
So, yeah, it's amazing that we have so many candidates running this year. Everybody brought their own style. Everybody has, their own messages, their own things that they're passionate about. And, I think that's a better thing than just running, one or two candidates and kind of focusing, kind of showing the vast amount of passions and things that that you can incorporate into the Libertarian Party is really what we did this year. And I think, we attracted a lot of people from, different aspects of New York City life that, they think, oh, okay, maybe I could be interested in the Libertarian Party. And, nobody embarrassed us, which is always a good thing. And I always
Not yet.
compare, I always compare running as a Libertarian to, kind of the David and Goliath type fight. I mean, we haven't found our David in New York City yet, but the thing is, you just got to keep going up there. You just got to keep fighting. And, the more you put people on the ballot and the more you run candidates, the more people see the Libertarian Party and consider us as an actual viable option. And if we don't put people on the ballot, we're never going to win. So even if it's, a small percentage, in the last election and the election before that, this election, people might really realize, okay, this is an actual viable option and we might get some actual numbers this year. And I think that's, certainly a possibility. And I'm excited to see, the numbers we put up tomorrow. I'm excited about it. And, for those out there watching, we will be at the LIC bar tomorrow night in Long Island City. If you're available, definitely come out and hope to see you all there. And don't forget to, vote for us tomorrow if you haven't already. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Matthew. All right, Paul, you got anything to say?
I just wanted to thank everyone here for coming together on this on such short notice and for really upping the quality and the standard for New York City's Libertarian Party. It is good to know you all.
All right,
Thank you,
Paul.
Paul and
Thank you,
Rebecca,
Paul,
for
for
hosting
everything.
this.
Yeah,
All
great
right,
job, folks.
now it's time for my closing. I've learned so much about moderating a debate since watching Stossel moderate the Libertarian presidential debate. Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank all the candidates for running. We have 8 candidates on the ballot this year, which is honestly an amazing feat considering everything that this party has gone through. We lost our ballot access. It was really hard to petition during the pandemic, but we persevered. And I think that we should all be super proud of ourselves for having so many candidates on the ballot. But I'm pretty sure that the Democrats and the Republicans, they probably thought the Libertarian Party, it's over once they lost their ballot access. It's not true. We came back, we got back up again, which is exactly what I said the last election. Yeah, I really hope that everybody comes to the party tomorrow. I mean, just look at the details. The party tomorrow, it starts at 8:30 to 9. 9 is when the polls close, so the party doesn't really start till 9, but doors at 8:30. It's at the LIC bar, 4558 Vernon Boulevard in Queens, New York. It's in Long Island City. And it'll be really, really fun. And I've worked extremely hard at inviting people, so I hope they all come because I've sent so many emails inviting people.
Awesome.
Because it's just so important that we get as many people as possible to show up so we can all celebrate this great accomplishment we've had as a party this year. And we only have a few months until we have to start this all over again.
It never ends. It just keeps going.
Get to hibernate for like whatever. I don't know. I don't know when at some point the state committee will meet and they will select candidates for governor, lieutenant governor, and there's also a US Senate election next year. So I'm guessing at least those three, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if anyone runs for like attorney general or anything in this party. I don't recall a time someone ran for it, but I guess our statewide is all open. So if you want to run.
We had a Garvey last cycle, Chris Garvey.
Okay, and also if you want to run next year, yeah, all of the US House seats are open. You should be able to run for like state assembly, I think. I don't know. You can look it up. You can look up what elections are happening next year, but in reality, if you want to run, you only have a couple months to get ready because you got to start petitioning again in the spring. So just think about it. So we could all take a break, at least for a couple months, until it starts all over again. So, okay, I just want to thank everybody for running, and I hope that we'll all do really well in the polls tomorrow.
Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Great job,
All right.
folks. Really appreciate it.
I'm going to stop the live stream.
All right.